Welcome back. Welcome back. It's another episode of the Best of Seven podcast. I am your host, Yo Rush. We're back at it again today with another guest. But before we get started, a couple of house cleaning rules. One, if you haven't already, follow us and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, all the places you get your social content. Subscribe, like on YouTube. And we're also on Apple and Spotify, all the places where you can get your audio podcast. So be sure to connect with us, leave a review, leave a comment, let us know how we're doing. We definitely want this to be a community. So we definitely value any input that we can get. But today we have another guest, and I'm really excited to talk to him, chop it up a little bit, and get to know a little bit more about him. He has competed on some of the toughest stages imaginable, from the gridiron of the NFL to Netflix's recently hot show Outlast. But his story is bigger than survival or sports. It's about resilience, reinvention, and turning life's lessons into purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited for Wes Saunders. Welcome to the Best of Seven. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Rush. I appreciate you guys having me, man. Thank you. I love everything you're doing over here, man.
No, I appreciate it. I'm just glad we were able to catch you, man. You've been on the go. I guess since the last few weeks when the show came out. So how has that sort of been for you since the show aired? I imagine it's been a bit of a rush and maybe even a little surreal for you.
Yeah, I mean, went to the top of the charts pretty quickly, so it's exciting. You know, the show did. Guess what? All the directors and the people who make a lot more money than me expected it to do. So, hundreds of million of people watching all over the world, and of course, everyone wants to reach out and let you know their thoughts on things. So, a lot of
Right.
DMs, a lot of messages and comments all across my platforms. But as they say in show business, no publicity is bad publicity. So.
That's definitely what they say, and we're definitely going to get into the show a little bit more and just your experience and sort of what it's been like after it aired and some of those comments you mentioned about. But as we do with every show, I really want to start at not necessarily at the beginning, but sort of before we get to like Netflix and Outlast and all the publicity. But no, you played in the NFL, but now I would assume it's fair to say your brand lives in a different space or maybe different spaces, right? Like you're obviously very fashionable. There's some travel in there, I would imagine, and lifestyle is in there as well. Um, Walk me through sort of how you went into developing it post NFL career. So, like, what does it mean for you to show up and be intentional now that you're no longer putting on the uniform on Sundays?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it was obviously the NFL and football was a great journey. It was something that was very fun across the duration of my adolescence and into adulthood. But all good things must come to an end. And of course, you know, people who followed my story, they knew I struggled with a few instances where I got suspended in the National Football League. Once for drug abuse and of course Adderall and making foolish mistakes. But those instances and public ridicule, people who know me know that one of my favorite sayings is that once you have ruined your reputation, you can live quite freely. And that's kind of what happened to me at an early age where, I got in so much trouble so quickly that I really had to find myself and, went to a dark place. They weren't really back in 2011, 2012, mental health and depression and all that good stuff wasn't really a buzzword like it is now. So really had to figure things out on my own. And in that journey, found out that a lot of other people were struggling with the same things I was struggling with, and especially men. And we really don't talk about it. So I tell people I didn't find the wellness space. The wellness space found me. And I really started looking more into holistic methods of taking care of my body, meditation, gut health, all of those good things. And I went full forward with that. And pandemic hit and the business blew up, man. So this is
Yeah.
obviously I think my steps are ordered by God. I go where the spirit tells me to go, and it hasn't led me astray thus far.
It's interesting the when you mentioned the pandemic and business sort of boomed for you, and you hear a number of other people who may be sort of online personalities or people who are public figures talk about the pandemic, and it's I think it sort of underscores how yeah it was obviously a tragic time. Definitely want to be respectful. A lot of people got sick and unfortunately lost their lives, but it was tough for everybody because it was a different way of living. Like I don't know if you did. I never lived through a shutdown. I never had to walk around the grocery store with masks on and be so conscious of who's next to you, who's around you, what you're touching. But you also hear a lot of breakthrough stories as well. And I think it's a testament to anyone who is can be in such tough times, but still, find a way to make it through and find something, find their calling, find their purpose, or just find something that sort of helps elevate them, out of that tough situation. So the fact that you could have gone through such a such a rough time with COVID, and now coming that sort of served as a springboard almost, I think is really cool. And I think it's just a testament to like just grit and tenacity and just, always being able to find a way. So
Thank you, and
that's
I would also say thank you to my father because he instilled so much information in me early. I've always been a conspiracy theorist, so even some of the things I would talk about pre-pandemic, people would look at me like I was from another planet. Hey, what are you going to do if the world shuts down? What would you do if
mm,
we couldn't go out tomorrow? And things would I would always come up with these theories. Obviously, 1984 and some of these dystopian future aspect things, and but to see it come to fruition in real time and to see your real beliefs be put to the test and really be swayed by different propaganda and different people telling you things like I was able to look around and see people who were way smarter than me succumb to the
mm,
pressure, and
right,
it gave me a lot of confidence to keep doing what I was doing because hey, it doesn't matter all these degrees and all these we were all shut down together, right? We all had the
yeah,
same decisions that we could make, and some people made certain decisions, and I can see now that I think I made the right decisions, moving forward. And I saw that a lot of people, even though, my stance wasn't popular at the time, it was real
sure,
and authentic. And I actually started gaining fans towards the end because I was really just speaking my mind from the beginning. So I think we're in a great time now, being with cats like yourself, who really just highlighting the real and,
yeah.
kind of skipping over the fluff and, kind of getting to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, and your dad actually came up in a lot of the research I did, and I know you famously talk about him being a well-educated black man, and that being important. It just I think in any time, but especially in this time, and I just have an appreciation for him being a journalist because I thought I wanted to be, or I did want to be a journalist back when I was coming out of college. Got into a couple of journalism programs, but as we talked about before we came on, it was just a really tough time to try to break into the industry right around the time I came out of college. But and I saw how as a journalist, you get information, but then you sort of have to sift through it, and you can't really afford to take it at face value. You got to investigate it, talk to multiple people, talk to multiple sources, and then really form your own opinion. So, do you feel like him having that, him having been a journalist, and I imagine he instilled some of those principles in you? Do you think that that's sort of been instrumental in you sort of being able in who you are as a person, but also as you sort of moved into other things outside of football?
Oh, absolutely. That's something that, honestly, I wanted to be a journalist first before I wanted to be an athlete just because of my father. I went to University of South Carolina to the J School, studied journalism, mass communication there, and really honed my skills because I wanted to be able to, anything you see during the broadcast, I want to be able to do. I want to be on the mic, behind the mic, do the audio, visual, technical things as well. So, but also what you said, do your due diligence, right? You can't
Yeah,
take everything for face value. You got to ask this person, ask again. Some people's stories change, so all of that I really saw through him. And you have to be unbiased, right? Can you talk to somebody who you don't agree with and still listen to them and maybe learn something from them, or showcase their point of view without a skewed mindset towards them? So all of those things, and patience, because people ain't
yeah,
gonna call you back immediately. You have to wait for things. You have to sometimes be on other people's time schedule. So I watched my dad do all of these wonderful things, and I kind of learned from it. And you got to have a thick skin, right? Because he would
right.
write stories about people, especially in the state of North Carolina, right? I remember he would write, articles and criticize Michael Jordan, which is almost like criticizing Jesus in North Carolina. And we would come home, and he would have death threats on on the voicemail, and people would
Oh
write
wow.
in letters to the editor, and he's laughing it off like it's nothing. So also seeing his reaction to these things and not letting it affect him as much really helped me deal with times like right now.
All right. Well, shout out to strong Black fathers out there.
Yeah,
We definitely need them. Um, so
we
moving
appreciate him
sort of.
now more.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Same and same here for my dad. So moving sort of back into to football, not necessarily specifically, but more like at the point where you sort of move beyond it. Was there a specific moment where you knew your next chapter was going to be something maybe even bigger than football? Was it a time? Was it a person? A conversation? Like when did you know that you were going to move into something a little bit different and maybe even a little bit more?
Good question. Well, honestly, for the most part, I've since birth, I've always felt I was destined for something great. I was born originally. I'm from Gary, Indiana. So I grew up there the early part of my childhood. So, having Michael Jackson there, and people don't know that Gary is very close to Chicago. We're about 30, 35 miles east of Chicago. So I'm there in the mecca of basketball, right? You got Michael Jordan, my favorite player personally, Reggie Miller. Coming out of Indiana, but just that feeling of, hey, I'm from a place where the greatest entertainer of all time is from. So I love singing, I
Mm,
love dancing, I love entertaining. So I obviously I was just a big kid and had athletic prowess. So I did a lot of different things early growing up, gymnastics, soccer, basketball was my first love. So it wasn't a matter of am I going to be famous? It was what am I going to be famous in? And that was kind of
mm,
always my mindset. Like I just felt I was a superstar. So, I kind of presented myself like that. And I knew I wanted to help people, right? I knew I wanted to be the guy that like to help the person who had less than because I felt like God gifted me with so much. And from early on, people would always tell me, hey, to whomsoever much is given of him shall much be required. My first tattoo, Luke 12:48. And I really took that to heart. Like, obviously you can easily be the bully, but you can, use that same energy to help others as well. So I knew that what I wanted to do was revolve around that. And who knew that catching a football and scoring touchdowns would make people so happy, especially, going to SEC school and even growing up in North Carolina, you realize quickly how much people appreciate a great athlete, right? They give you a little bit extra food, a little bit of extra attention. So it was kind of a double-edged sword where the better I performed, the more people liked me, the more people felt, good about being a fan of mine or my school or my team. So that's kind of how I always knew that I would end up helping somebody once my football days were done. So going into the wellness field, mental health, helping guys that I played with, knowing what they're struggling with, knowing you can't tell people money isn't everything if they've never had money, right? These are certain
mm.
conversations to have for certain people, and I do believe that I can, provide a viewpoint behind that can help others.
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily um, one of my questions. I'm just always curious. I've spoken now to four professional athletes, and I'm just curious. Going to a school like University of South Carolina, um, I've never been to a game, but I've seen like the stadium and the environment on TV. Was any of that like shell shocking for you, or did you sort of take it all in? Were there any? Did you ever have a moment where you're like, damn, like I'm really here in South Carolina playing like as major college football? Was that a reaction of yours at any point?
Yeah, not really. It was almost like it was manifested, man. I tell people all the time,
Mm,
you gotta believe it to see it first, and so 'cause some people obviously think it's the other way around. Like, no, you have to actually see yourself doing it, like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. So luckily, growing up, my father's best friend, who I consider my uncle, Lloyd Edwards, he had a son that went to University of South Carolina. His name was Kalimba Edwards, and Kalimba was a senior. Probably couldn't have been no older than 10 or 11, and he was the man in South Carolina. Like he was, first team All America, first team All SEC, academic All America. So he was the man, projected first round pick. So we would go there and see him play, and I would just watch him. He was a great player, but of course, after it's 80,000 people there after the game. I remember girls would do full sprints from the other side of the stadium. Kalimba! And they would go run and jump on him. And I'm just looking, I'm like, man, this is what it's about. So at 10 years old, I'm kind of knowing like, okay, things are making sense to me that, all right, if you get to this position, this could be yours, right? Just the accolades and people cheering
right.
for you and the excitement. Um, so I guess it was almost that thing where I saw it early. I saw what my goal was and was like, okay, this is all I got to do. As long as I just keep getting bigger and faster, which I did, then this could be
Right.
mine. So before you know it, fast forward to 2007, and I'm playing as a true freshman in South Carolina in front of 90,000 people, and it was like that moment, coming around like, hey, this is everything I hope for. And
Mm,
I'm one of those visual type of people. You're a basketball guy who hasn't been in the backyard, dribbling 3, 2, 1,
yep.
fade away, hitting the ball, hitting the game winning shot. But that's real manifestation. You really practicing being in that moment and not letting the moment be too much for you. And I'm glad that I grew up that way because when I got to school, I saw some guys who did have that shell shock look on their face. And by the time you got that look, the next guy's taking your spot, right?
Yeah.
You happy to be here, and somebody has taken your place, so you can't afford to get comfortable.
Yeah. And just on football, I mean, you spent years playing, um, both college and the NFL in one of the most competitive environments. I would say, probably on earth. Um, and then you sort of fast forward a few years, you move into another competitive environment, right? A jungle survival competition. Um, was there anything that outlasts being in the jungle for an extended period of time, you know, losing calories? Like, was there anything that it taught you about yourself that football didn't?
Oh man, I probably learned more a month out there in the jungle than I did in the last 20 something years of playing football, man. You first of all, just fasting alone, not going without food. We
Yeah.
didn't have food for 10 days. I learned a lot about myself, as far as what I'm able to retain. Coconut saved my life. I lost 40 pounds in the first 20 days and was still able to sustain myself. So, I started the Win with West program with a lot of my own modalities, such as breath work and functional mobility and movement and things like that. And that all of that helped us out in the jungle. I was able to take my teammates through my breath work patterns, and we were the strongest team out there physically, right? There were
Mm.
guys out there in the show who passed out. One guy fainted and fell in the fire, had to be medically evacuated. So you realize how
Oh, damn.
it's not a game, right?
Yeah.
There's real danger implications out there. And so you got to be on your P's and Q's because that's not your territory. This is the animals' territory, right? So they can do as they please. So it was a respect kind of thing. Like I became one. I hate to sound trite, but I became one with nature.
Mm.
Uh, After about 2, 3 weeks out there, I realized I could spend another 6, 7 months out here, right? Like once I became immersed in that environment, that's what really got me is that, hey, I'm actually comfortable in this space. I don't need my phone and a bunch of noise and TV and all this stuff. This is really everything I need is out here. And so it definitely changed my mindset for the better looking at life going forward.
And were you able to take any of your uh, football, athletic sports experience into that? Like, obviously, for football, it's 11 guys on the field. Everybody has to work in harmony. Maybe like the quarterback might be a position that's more important than the other, but somebody's got to he's got to hand the ball off to somebody. Somebody's got to catch it when he throws it. Were there any team building uh, tactics or elements that you took in to that experience in the jungle?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was Unc out there. I was older than a lot of the people. My teammates were calling me Unc. But I definitely brought more of an assertive approach. I think people first came out there. It's a competition, first of all. So, and the competition is based off of everything. You can betrayal,
Right.
deceit. Obviously, you can win competitions, but it's a dirty game. So, me knowing that, I kind of wanted to take the approach of let's fortifying our team and let's not really go out and try to be buddy buddy with these other teams because they're just trying to collect intel on us. So one of
Right.
the tactics I implemented was we were going to have designated speakers for the day. Like if we were going out on the island, only one of us would be the speaker, and all of the questions would be directed towards whoever the leader of the group was that day. So sometimes we would rotate. The women would take the lead because I didn't want it to feel like it was just us guys taking over. Right? I wanted everybody to have a leadership role. Wanted everybody to feel like they had equal importance in the group. Then you're able to see and weed out the people who are not ready for roles of power, right? Not everybody needs to
Mhm.
be in a position of power leading the group. And some people are liabilities. And so I'm very proud of the way that I was fair with the team, but also was able to kind of notice who was the weak links and who we needed to get rid of, which is very important. In a survival scenario, is almost more important who you get rid of than what kind of survival skills because having the wrong people around can sink your ship.
Mm. And did it seem like your teammates was that a bit of a culture shock for them seeing somebody come in and just be, more assertive and more about the end goal of just like, hey, this is survival. This isn't really, buddy buddy, holding hands and singing in the jungle like we're here for one thing and one thing only. Did that seem to catch any of your teammates off guard or were they all did they all kind of fall in line?
It caught them off guard at first, but I think they knew it was coming from a genuine place. And it doesn't take long for the things that I'm saying. I don't consider myself to be the smartest man in the room, but I'm very wise, right? And so I can learn from past mistakes. I can learn from people's facial expressions. I'm very observant, and so some of the things I was saying started to become true. Then they say, "Hey, maybe this Unc guy knows what he's talking about." And it made me feel good to hear that the other teams were conspiring to get me off the game board and trying to get me kicked off because it became apparent very quickly I was one of the stronger players. And that was exciting for me, because that was
Mm,
not necessarily my arena. But if you give me a space where, like my teammate Brett, who was from Louisiana, this guy knew everything there was to know about living on the land, right? He was
right.
he was catching all type of food. He knew how to construct things and make it was amazing. So his skill set, my skill set, and my buddy Braxton, his skill set of able, being an athlete, it all came together beautifully in a situation where just being there without cameras would have been hard enough. So it was definitely a test, mentally, physically, but spiritually as well. I think some of those 40 pounds that came off was spiritual weight that I needed to
Mm.
shed out there, and I definitely needed it.
And we talked about this, I think before we started recording, and you even alluded to it at the beginning. But obviously, the show was a hit, right? Trending charts, Netflix, a whole bunch of eyes, a lot of comments, a lot of content, a lot of energy and buzz around the show. Um, but I'm curious because, as with all reality television, and maybe with just television in general, there's always things that don't make the cut, right? The final cut, and a lot of what people think about a show obviously is by what they see, what's portrayed. So I'm curious, what's sort of the inside story or the story on the inside, the things that actually went on that didn't make it into the final cut that people didn't get to see, and was there anything or what surprised you most about the experience now that you've been able to sort of watch the show back?
Yeah, honestly, they left a lot out. I understand that drama sells, and I think they went the full drama route. So I've seen from a lot of critics who enjoyed the show say it's entertaining, but they wish they could have seen more survival instances because they kind of made it more about the drama. Unfortunately, they didn't show me as a nuanced character, right? They kind of cast me as the football player who went broke and is out here just trying to compete and be mean and get this $1 million. And that be that. So that was kind of disheartening, especially because we spent so many hours doing these interviews beforehand, and they know everything about me. They know how much I'm involved in the community and know how much I fight as a proponent for women's rights and children's rights and advocacy and things like that. So for them to showcase me in a manner where all they highlighted were confrontational moments and things like that, that was a little bit disheartening. But then I know now that the hot ticket is men versus women, misogyny and all of these things. So they highlighted us as the big bad Team Charlie who didn't listen to the women and talked over the women. So that's what people see, and so they leave out the nuance part. These are hundreds of hours spent out there, and this is, it's a. I appreciate you having me on. We're closing out Men's Mental Health Month, and one thing I talk to a lot of men about is the emotional trauma that they can get from women. Sometimes, I love our queens, I love the sisters, but they're not going to hit us physically, but you can wear down a man emotionally, uh, especially with words. And I noticed that out there in the jungle, and that really wasn't talked about as much, especially in a survival setting. We kind of get lost in the aspect of trying to act how we act here at home, and out there you have to have a different level of discernment. And just one of those things where I guess I was counting on Netflix to do the right thing, but Netflix is Netflix, man. It's owned by the colonizer. I'm so glad that guys like you have a platform to showcase your voice and let others' voices be heard uh, without an agenda behind it. Because now I look at it from a bigger picture. You're a businessman. I'm a businessman. Netflix, they have an agenda, right? They have owners. They have shareholders um, who want to see things a certain way. And me being a big black lazy aggressive athlete, I'm just collateral damage in the grand scheme of things. So, it is what it is, but no publicity is bad publicity. We're gonna use this and transmute this energy into something positive. But
Sure.
it is kind of disheartening to kind of have to uh, defend myself, or at least have my wife get on the line and help defend me against all
Mhm.
these, crazy people online.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine the scale of some of that vitriol that you had to face. I that came up in my research as well. I understand that there was like death threats and threats to like your family and things that you were getting in your DMs. And I got a little bit cachet online. I got a little bit of a following, and I get some people throwing static my way every once in a while. But obviously, nothing would nothing that I've experienced could even compare what it sounds like to what you've had to endure. When it's first started happening, right? When the show first launched, and I mean, I saw people as quickly as like episode one. Like they're like, nah, West guy, like, nah, he ain't it, and this and that. How quickly did you have to, because I see now you're at a place where, at least from some of your Instagram posts, where you just sort of seemingly let a lot of it just roll off your back. Was that did you have that attitude when all of the comments and the DMs started rolling in, or did you sort of have to go through a process where you're like, well, damn, this is only because they're only seeing a small piece of however many hours I was out there. They don't have the full picture. So I'm just gonna vibe, and the show's doing well, so I'm gonna promote the show. So was there a journey for you, or were you kind of resilient from the start?
Yeah, it was a quick journey, because the show hit
Mm,
and I'm getting messages. I mean, as soon as the day of, and it was one of those things I had to practice compartmentalization, right? Like these people are watching a character on TV, they're not watching me, right? And in the
right.
most extreme circumstances, it's one of those things where I can't criticize the consumer, right? They're just watching what's being presented to them and making a judgment off of that. And so, very quickly, I just had to realize like this is not much different than me playing a villain on a TV show and people hating that villain and that character. So,
Mm,
obviously the personal attacks don't feel great, but I
right.
also, I know that they don't know me, they don't know my family. It doesn't really bother me as much as it does the people around me. I hate that it bothers the people around me, right? So I got some people who are close to me who hate that I was showcasing such a light on Netflix, and oh, that's not Wes. And some people even gone so far as to cancel their Netflix subscription because they believe that they purposely showcase black men in a stereotypical light as that. So
Mm,
definitely probably be my last reality TV show. There were some things that were promised to me that didn't even make the cut. Obviously there's no mention of my family, my kids.
right.
There's no sentimental moments where I'm able to mention anything of significance outside of the fact that I played in the NFL, which they repeated over and over. And of course, they're able to splice different interviews and different moments together. And it's like, wow, this is really a production. This is it's not so much about the progress we made and me doing meditations on the beach and having these sessions with the team and these very intimate moments with each other. They just want the garbage, right? And so it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like, okay, now I know what to prepare for going forward. I'm 37. Hey, this don't stop anything. This now, if anything, I got more wisdom going forward on what not to do.
Yeah. And I think I believe obviously that we sort of throughout our lives we experience like different versions of ourselves, right? And the distance between one version to the next, it may be long, it may be years, it could be days. But I think when we go through significant experiences, obviously I think we come out the other side like a different version of ourselves before we went in. When you look back at your time on the show and you sort of watch it, and then you see what was presented versus what you actually went through, is there anything that you would do differently? Like, do you look back and be like, like maybe I shouldn't have made that decision in terms of the team, or I shouldn't have said this or that, or are you pretty comfortable with? You feel like you were your authentic self the entire time?
Definitely. I was myself 100% of the time, and now looking back on it, I wish I was myself more. Because
Mm,
the last instance, not to be for any spoilers out there, people who haven't seen the show, but at the end, we had a instance where my teammates were duped into a meeting with another team, and I was totally against it the whole time. The show doesn't showcase me being against, like, feeling something was fishy. We were being set up by this other team, and that was the moment I should have stepped in and said, "Hey, everybody, stop, and we chill here. We don't need to go over there," because we were the leading team at the moment. So it was a moment where one of our teammates left us and kind of backstabbed us and stole from us and went to another team. But in those kind of moments, I really could have just spoken up and been more assertive and told everybody, "Hey, we're just going to staple down. We don't need to go anywhere." But I was trying to be the nice guy and let people do their own thing. We ended up getting duped, and it was one of those moments where me speaking up more could have saved us a lot of headache, could have won us the competition at the end. So, all in all, sometimes I think the thing I've had to deal with most of my life is knowing when to step up and when to be a leader, because I'm so humble, and I feel like everybody should have a chance. And sometimes, oh, maybe they might know better, but you really have to sometimes believe in your own ability. That Mamba mentality of, okay, I'm gonna get us there, right or wrong, I'll be the one that takes a shot at the end because I feel very comfortable in my ability to do that. So it was I guess it's one of those things where I am who I thought I was. And I'm very proud of that. And one of the main things I went out there, they also did not showcase was the fact that I wanted to. They asked me, "Hey, Wes, why'd you do this?" I said, "I want to showcase that Black and Brown people can be out here in these environments and be very comfortable as well." Because for some reason, people think of hunting and outdoors things as something that Caucasians do or non-Black people do. But I know a lot of people who came up in this space and we need to get our reconnection with the land. They tricked us out of our spot with the land with moving on up to a deluxe apartment in the sky, and we left all our land for everybody else. So that was very important for me to showcase, and that's going to be part of the plight of me, transition and transmuting this energy into what I see fit, right? Teaching young brothers and sisters how to live, how to start a fire, how to make their own food, how to
Right.
filter and boil water, right? We didn't have water for 10 days or didn't have fire for 10 days. So I couldn't drink any water because you don't know what's in that water coming from the creek. One guy out there got sick drinking some water from the creek. So you really
Mm,
got to, know how to take care of yourself when it's survival time. Hopefully it won't ever come to that, but if it did, you want to be
right.
prepared.
Yeah. And you mentioned, obviously we're recording this on June 30th. And June is, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And you mentioned earlier when you were playing in the league that mental health, it didn't get the attention that it does now. It's almost taboo, right? Like you don't really discuss it. Um, so it's more now a real conversation than it ever was previously. Like when you were a professional athlete. How has your how has your journey, like, speak a little bit more about how your journey has shaped how you show up in that space now when you're advocating, when you're consulting, when you're coaching, when you're sort of pouring in to men and young boys and girls. How has your experiences in a time when mental health wasn't at the forefront of a lot of these conversations? How has that sort of shaped how you approach it now?
Oh man, it's one of those. It's a delicate situation, but it also requires some fortitude. And I think we come at it from a not aggressive enough, unfortunately. It's always too late or what could I have done? And when you move aggressively, you can stop some of these moments. And unfortunately, when I was going through one of my toughest times, I got suspended by the NCAA for accepting benefits for my likeness and name. Which was just a few years ahead of my time. But I got suspended for that, and I'm sitting on the sideline feeling terrible about not being able to play my senior year. I'm the number one tight end in the country. I'm supposed to be going first round. And here I am, first week of the season, sitting on the sideline, feeling sorry about myself. And it was a tough time, especially I had to be on campus, watching my team thrive all that year. And during that time, I had a teammate that I played with, Kenny McKinley, who had committed suicide while he was in the NFL. So he had left South
Mm,
Carolina the year or two prior. He was in the league, been dealing with some issues. And around that same time of me feeling sorry for myself, we get the news that Kenny McKinley has passed away from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And I will say, I had contemplated it up until that point. Like it's still hard to talk about to this day, just because I know how much of an impact it had on me. But Kenny was a special guy, and I was like, wow, are my problems really that deep where I could end it all right now, or can I get through this? And so I was able to get through it. But it was his spirit that helped me kind of get through it. Like, man, Kenny was so lively, had a smile on his face all the time. It's all something, especially when you know the guys. It's like can he did that, so it was almost that shock factor of like, wow, even the happiest guys, the guys who make the room light up are the ones you really need to check on. And I was that guy, right? I was Big West dancing. Everybody always got a smile. Hey, there go Big West. And here I am in the depths of depression thinking about ending it all myself. So that's kind of when I had the mindset that I was always going to go through life with a level of compassion and understanding because nobody knew what I was dealing with. Nobody knew how heavy it was. I had to leave school on some weekends because, you know, Alabama come in and we're playing Alabama and I'm not playing and we beat Alabama for the first time in school history and the school is going crazy and everybody just having a blast and I'm not a part of it, right? I'm not on the sideline, I'm not with the team. That was tough for a 21-year-old kid, right? So we're still kids at 21. So dealing with that stuff, I had to understand that some people mentally are still that 14 or 15-year-old kid or dealing with whatever trauma they dealt with at a young age. So it's helped me have a lot more compassion for people, men and women, and really I'm taking more of an aggressive approach with men because you have to poke the bear with men for them to tell you when something's wrong. Women, fortunately, they'll tell you immediately without you even asking. But a lot of men, it really takes a long time for them to express what's going wrong in their lives. Unfortunately, sometimes it's too late.
Mhm. And sticking with just wellness, talk about some of the initiatives you're involved with, like specifically when with Wes and how you sort of developed that concept, the three C's and all that. How did you sort of you know conceive all of those conceive that concept and how did you get into everything that you're doing now?
Well, yeah, I've always enjoyed working with children. I consider myself a big kid, so people have always asked me to speak to the children. I've been speaking to the kids here in Florida for many years since I've been here in 2015, and they actually approved me as an independent contractor in the state of Florida for all public schools to go in and teach my Win with West curriculum. So they've approved it. We base it around everything from gut health to meditation to nutrition. I believe that the gut is the second brain. This is something initiative that I had working with Tinkerbell's Kids, Silent Victims of Crime, which is an organization here in Miami that works with children who have one or both parents who are incarcerated. So we help with the reunification process of that and the stigma that goes behind even being locked up in general, right? And the process that goes on with that. But obviously a lot of these kids come from some of the same neighborhoods, right? Some of these
Mhm.
underserved communities that as we call nutrition deserts, right? And they don't have the proper amenities around them to get the nutrients they need, and so we're eating flaming hot Cheetos and soda pop and all these foods that are tearing our gut up. I was a guy; I used to
Yeah.
be over 300 pounds, so I know how unhealthy these foods can be. And unfortunately, the studies behind it don't correlate with sugar and sodium intake on brain development, right? I tell people all the time they do
Hmm.
after car accidents, they do toxicology reports immediately on people to see if you have alcohol or any impairment. But there are a lot of people walking around impaired from an excess amount of sugar and sodium and preservatives from these foods. And I think it's affecting our children. I think it's affecting our brain development. And so that's something that, and adults as well, because you see it in adults. I tell grown people all the time, you don't have an Advil or a Tylenol deficiency, right? People keep an Advil or a Tylenol on them, popping them like they're vitamins, and they're not, right? We got to get to the root cause of the problem, and that's what Win with West is around because it could be a spiritual issue why your lower back is hurting, right? I know a lot of men who
Hmm.
keep a lot of trauma stored in the hips. You might need to stretch out some trauma that you've been holding on for years, and so these are the kind of things that we don't think about in a sense. And a lot of smart people, we have systems and computers and meetings and all of this, but sometimes you don't know that you can be your own worst enemy when it comes to healing yourself. So I think that the body is a self-healing organism, and we just have to remove all of the negative aspects around us that are not helping us achieve what we want to achieve. So I was that guy, like you said, hey, North Carolina, man. I love Bojangles. I love cookout. I can't eat it every day like I used to, right? I could do Bojangles and cook out, switch off each day for a week straight, and I'd be good. You can't eat like that now, right? You got to give the body a chance to recover and heal itself. And so sometimes it's the message, sometimes it's the messenger. And pandemic started. I was making my own juices. I would, kind of manifest and make my these concoctions of juices that I was finding. I found Dr. Sebi online, who was an African herbalist, and he had proof of healing all of these people through natural remedies, and I wanted in on that. I started learning about the different alkaline foods and beets and ginger, and it was just so amazing that I couldn't wait to tell everybody else. And it kind of took off from there, man. So, here we are today. We're speaking at public forums on health and nutrition. I got my juice company here, where we service the South Florida area with our cold pressed juices, man. And, we're excited to see where it's going because now it's a hot topic, health and
Right.
nutrition, for everybody.
Well, I know my wife would appreciate you just off of that alone. She's always advising against getting our girls like the talkies and the food
Oh,
coloring and the
yeah.
chips and
Yeah,
I'm
I thought my son was gonna fight me when I told him we weren't eating them Takis no more. He was sad, but you gotta do what you gotta do, man. This ain't, and this also ain't the food that me and you grew up eating as well, right?
right,
These are different
right.
ingredients from our day and age. So
Yeah, and I know she has a point. I'm a little spoiled because I've always than the skinny athletic guy with the high metabolism. So I've
So you can
never
eat whatever. You can eat whatever you
to
want.
to this point I've been fortunate. I haven't really had to be too conscious about what I put in my body because I'm just burning it off like seconds later almost. But she's always been, health conscious. That's always at the forefront of everything. Like she's reading labels, she's getting the Trader Joe's variant of cinnamon toast crunch and fruity pebbles just because it's a little healthier.
Yeah,
So yeah, no, I
that's
think that
amazing.
but yeah, but she's read up, right? Like she's sort of more in your lane where I just go with what I want. But it sort of speaks to what you said. Like we don't really think a lot about what we're putting in our bodies, let alone the effects that it has on us, thinking that, oh, well, I'm dealing with something else. Like, no, it's the food that you're putting in your body, plus like maybe the stress that you're carrying, like you said, carrying stress in your hips. Like a lot of that is just a bad concoction and we're just walking around ailing and we, can't find the root of it. And a lot of it's what we're putting in our bodies. So
Yeah, and
I
then
think
add
that
on to
that's
it, we're creatures of habit. So if we like something,
right.
most of the time people are going to eat and drink, right? Hey, look, that's another thing. Obviously, I've never been a big alcohol guy, but
Yeah.
my wife, she used to be the state manager for Remy Martin liquors, so
Mm.
Louis the 13th and Remy and
Oh,
all of his events based around liquor. And I realized how their sales went up 800% when pandemic started in the U.S.
yes.
alone. So
Yeah.
I knew I knew we had a problem on our hand where like, obviously people are already drinking, but now they're drinking two or three, four times as much.
Yeah.
So I knew that pendulum was going to swing back eventually. So now some of those same people are, hey, Wes, tell me about kale. Tell me about some of these juices. And so, I just got to have patience and be there for them when they're ready.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So we're gonna close out. It's the last question I have for you. Um, so you've, like I said, versions, right? We live through different versions throughout our lifetime. So you're a former professional athlete, NFL, like creme de la creme, I would say, of athletes in the world. You've got a bit of a, I would say, I hope it's fair to say you've got a bit of a lifestyle brand. You're a mental health voice and advocate, reality TV star, or maybe retired reality TV star. Um,
To be
when
determined.
Yeah, when we get down the line and down the road, what's the through line of Wes Sanders that you want people to remember? Like, what does your legacy look like, and what do you want to have stood for?
I want to be known as a fair man who was there for the people, right? And being a fair man doesn't mean people always like you, right? I don't have a
Mhm.
problem being disliked, so that's why, I always revert back to my father. Here I am, 37. I thought I'd never want to be like my dad, but here I am, trying to be like him every day. Where it's like, okay, you can make it a stance to help people, but you can also be critical of people, right? We can also hold other folks accountable. And so, if anything, you can call me any adjective you want to call me, but I would say, uh, a fair man who was there for the people and was always an advocate for women and children, right? Long as we protect the women and kids, man, we can have our differences, but there are certain people who we must go out of our way to protect. And so that's my stance on things. Uh, Now, of course, you're gonna have to ask other people what they think of me. But like my dad said, what other people think of me is none of my business. So
That's good. That's a good way to end off. So, where can people connect with you online? And if you want to, give us some like specifically all the initiatives you're involved with. So if people wanted to check you out online, they can.
yeah, you can appreciate it. You can catch me online Instagram at Wes Saunders 88. That's Instagram and Twitter, same handle. And Wesley Saunders, Weslye Saunders, Saunders on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook. So yeah, we got a bunch of initiatives. Tinkerbell's Kids, if anybody wants to volunteer, donate to our organization. We have two factions here in Miami and one in Anderson, South Carolina, started by the wonderful Paulette Tinkerbell Pfeiffer, who is 82 years old now and is advocating for black and brown folks. And so that's what it's all about now, man, is serving folks, start serving people and bringing the community together, man. So thank you, Rush, for everything you're doing, man. This is community building, whether you know it or not. You're definitely building a community around you, man, and kudos to you. Seems like you got this journalism thing down packed, man. So
Well, I appreciate it. I still feel like I'm learning how to fly the plane in the air, but
Only way to do it.
it's like everything else is just reps, right? So,
Yeah,
but no, thank you for coming on the show. Giving us a piece of your morning. It's been very fascinating just to hear your story, get to know you a little bit better. But I'm always grateful anytime somebody says yes. We haven't had a no yet, so hopefully we can keep the streak rolling. But I
that's the
definitely
energy, man.
appreciate
Keep
you.
bringing the energy, brother. Y'all, hey, man, doing the thing with a good heart and good intentions behind it, man. You ain't gonna get no no's, or if you do get no's, it'll be from people that you probably shouldn't be working with anyway. So,
Yeah, I appreciate it, and just congratulations with everything that you're kind of into now, just on the heels of success from the show. Definitely an exciting time, so I'm looking forward to following along.
thank you, brother, and
Uh,
blessings to you and your family, man.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Same to you and yours. All right,
Absolutely.
that's the episode for this week. Once again, make sure you like and subscribe to us here on YouTube. If you're watching us, we're on Instagram, TikTok, all the socials, and you can find us on Apple and Spotify. Be sure to give us a listen and a review there as we're trying to build the show up. And once again, Wes, thank you for coming on. Always welcome back anytime you'd like. That's best of 7 for this week. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.